Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sue Carrick and I'm passionate about inspiring, motivating, supporting and informing women over 50 to embrace this exciting time of life. Health and wellness in mind, body and spirit are the foundations for living well, but there is so much more to a life well lived. Each week, through conversations with my guests, I'll be presenting topics that will help us all to live well and enjoy life. So join me as we discover new ways to become women living well after 50. Are you ready to start living? What are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sue Carrick and it's lovely to have you join me. Now I'm excited today because the guest is Lynne Smith, and Lynne is someone that I went to high school with. We connected again about 10 years ago at our school reunion, and that was our 40-year one, and this year it's our 50th year reunion. And it was very interesting getting back in touch with Lynne, and I found that her life has not probably taken the path that she thought it would, but she's come through it with resilience and reinvention and just enjoying life, despite all that she has experienced in her life. So I hope you're going to enjoy the conversation. I know I will, and I'm sure that you will have some takeaways for your own life and living well once you've heard Lynne's story. So let's go and join the conversation. Welcome, Lynne. It is such a joy to have you join me on the Women Living Well After 50 podcast.
Thank you, Sue.
Now, I said in my interview that we actually met in high school, or even before that, I think, when we went to ballet school together.
Correct.
And so it's been many years. However, like a lot of friendships, we lost touch and then we reconnected at our 40th high school reunion. And we've got our 50th reunion coming up this year that I can't believe. I think they've made a mistake, actually.
What can we say?
That's right. But I wanted to have you on the program because you're a little bit different to my normal guests. My normal guests usually are in a business or they're working with women to, help them live better. But for you, I want to talk about your personal story because I think that from that, it's very inspiring, and I'm sure that the listeners will enjoy listening to your story, and also because you have gone through some difficult times and you've come through them stronger. And, I really want to talk about that because I do admire you for that.
Thank you. I am in your hands.
Okay, so let's start. We might start with reinventing yourself because I recently wrote a post about reinvention after 50 and the fact that you don't have to completely change yourself. You're still you, but it might be a new you. And you actually have had multiple reinventions in your life. You've had lots of experience. Some of them have been not so good. And I'm going to talk about your MS a little bit later. But you've reinvented yourself. You've worked in hospitality, you've run businesses, you've even started a dog minding service, as well as coping with MS and other trials that have come along in life. So what has driven you to keep adapting? And what advice would you have for others facing unexpected life changes?
Let's start jumping in the deep end, Sue. It's a good idea. I think, well, it's adapting is all about just being aware that there are changes going on, being aware that you can help control those changes and getting help from other people to be able to do that. That makes sense?
Yes, it does. And it's not always easy, though, is it? Because we tend to, I think, be our own worst enemy, especially if it's a personal sort of issue. We think, oh, we don't want to tell anyone about it, or we become overthinking the whole thing, and it just overwhelms us. So when you say about taking control, how do you do that? What sort of steps do you take for that?
Okay, well, if we go back to the beginning, I was 2IC. So I married a chef. He wanted to open a restaurant. I had hospitality training as well. And so it made perfect sense to do that. So I was following his lead. I was helping him. We were married. I was helping him to achieve his dream. Okay. So, and as time went on, we did that for several years. Whilst we were doing that, as you mentioned, I was diagnosed with MS. So that's where the first change had to come, because I could no longer live the life that I used to live and that I wanted to live. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So I had to learn how to adapt to what I could now do and what my new life was. That took me a long time, and I had to get help. And I'd been diagnosed. I was 33 when I was diagnosed. We're now, as you know, both 67. So I've been diagnosed longer now. I've been diagnosed longer than before, which one that throws me a bit. The first few years weren't good. I didn't have really a lot of help. I really didn't have any guidance or direction. But then I did. I found the person who could help me, and that made a very big difference to my attitude, a very big difference to the way I saw myself, the way I helped myself, the way other people saw me, and I could move forward in a new direction from there.
Now, sense? Can I just ask you, yes, can I just ask you, just for the listeners, just tell us what MS is. I mean, we've heard about it and so forth, but I think if you're not directly involved, you probably think, oh yeah, I've heard of it, but I'm not sure what it is. So what effect does it have on your body?
Okay, well, in a nutshell, multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease. So it affects in my instance, it's the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, well, MS is the brain and the spinal cord. So because it's autoimmune, the body's immune system attacks itself and causes what are called lesions. Now, depending where those lesions are on your spine or your brain, depending where those lesions are, how many there are, and how bad they are as to how your body is affected. Because, of course, the nerve system goes through all the body. So if you've got, as I do, if you have a lesion on your spine that affects your legs, for example, that means for me personally, I can't walk very far. I can't stand for very long. I can't run. I can't do any of those sorts of things. I can't jump. I can't do any of those sorts of things. I've got some in my brain. That means that I've got some mind things. I have some short-term memory and stuff like that. But the thing is about MS, everybody's different because it depends where the lesions are. Some people are affected in areas that I'm not. So I have a friend who is our age, diagnosed almost the same time. I'm quite, I walk around, I get around, I can do a lot of stuff. This friend of mine, she's already in a wheelchair. So that means that her lesions in different places and affecting her differently. There's 4 different types of MS. The worst being the wheelchair. There's the one that most people start out with. It's called remitting relapsing. So you have a bit of an attack, you get a lesion. I'm simplifying it, but this is what it means. And then you sort of go back to normal until you have another attack, another lesion as it goes. So that's your remitting relapsing. Then there is secondary progressive, where you don't remit as often or as well, and then it goes to permanent progressive, I think, and they're the people who end up in a wheelchair. Now I'm still considered remitting relapsing after 34 years, and that's very lucky for me. And I can tell you why if you like.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Continue.
Well, it's not all down to me, of course. As I say, I've been diagnosed for a while and things weren't good. I was in a very bad place. I was not coping well. I have an A-type personality, as I suspect you may also. And so it's go, go, go. You've got to do things. You've got to do it properly, all that stuff. In fact, most of your audience is probably A-type, I would imagine. And when you can't do that, it's like it really throws you. You don't understand what's going on. So I had to go and get professional help from a clinical psychologist who showed me how I could adjust to my new life and make it good, and even in some ways make it better.
Can I just interrupt you there for a sec, because I want to pick up on a couple of points. Back when you were first got diagnosed, you were only 33 and running the restaurant, or helping your husband run the restaurant.
Well, no, I was vital in there.
Sorry.
Yes, I was in the front.
Yes.
I was vital. I was front of house. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that you're in the midst of all that, you get hit with this diagnosis, and I wouldn't have thought there much information around at that time about multiple sclerosis. So had you heard of it, or how did you discover that you actually had it? What was the symptoms?
Okay, well, because I was working so hard, long hours, all that stuff, and one of the major symptoms is fatigue. Okay, but I was brought up, my mother's favorite saying was, you'll feel better when you get to school. So I was never allowed to have time off school. So even though I was feeling unwell, I kept going to work and feeling lousy and feeling really, life wasn't clever, life wasn't good, until one day I woke up and I literally couldn't get out of bed. My body just said, no, that's enough. You have to stop now. And I literally so that was my first major thing. Lots of other bits and pieces going on. So fast forward a few weeks, I went to the doctor. I hadn't really improved terribly much. I couldn't work, couldn't do anything like that. Just housebound, basically. Went to the doctor. He said, you've got a virus, eventually I started doing some research. I knew of MS, but of course in Australia, the only person we really knew MS was Betty Cuthbert. So that's the big deal. Everyone's going into a wheelchair. That's always everyone's first fear. But excuse me, eventually, when the doctor sent me for a CT scan, because MRI, I live on the Central Coast. There wasn't even an MRI on the Central Coast. I eventually had to go down to North Shore to have the MRI. I came back with a diagnosis from the CT scan that I probably had a brain tumor. Now, that's not uncommon with being misdiagnosed with MS. It's not a common disease, but it's more and more in Australia. There's now over 23,000 people with MS, varying degrees, all states. So anyway, I was told that I probably had a brain tumor. I had to wait 5 days before I could see a neurologist, and he looked at my CAT scans, did what he needed to do, asked questions, and he said, no, you've got MS. That was a great relief, because I didn't want to have a brain tumor.
No.
That makes sense?
Yes. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, gosh, I'm glad you got a second opinion. But that would have really been one of the first major upheavals in your adult life, I would think.
Well, yes, I guess because life was going along well. We're happily married. We're running a successful business. We've got friends. We've got family. You've got all that business. We don't have children, but that's a whole other story. Not because of the MS, but interestingly enough, I thought I was having trouble having children, and I went to a gynae, and he put me on a drug, one of those drugs, whatever they're called, I forget. Anyway, that actually brought on my MS. So,
oh, really?
The hormones that were involved in that exacerbated whatever I had inside my body to kick off the MS. So if I'd had children, that probably would have happened as well. So life would have been doubly difficult for everyone.
Yes. So a lot to cope with, though, at 33. So, you've made a life for yourself really well, because I think sometimes when we get a diagnosis, our first reaction is, oh, well, that's it. Life's gone, sort of thing. I've got to change everything. But not you. You travel. You've actually recently been diving, and was it, I could be wrong here, diving with sharks as well, just recently?
In Sydney, yes,
Sydney,
true.
yes.
In Darling Harbour.
Yeah. So
not in the ocean.
Oh, no. No, but I mean, even for in a controlled environment, that's impressive to me. But I think what I'm trying to say is that you haven't really, you've had that strength, and okay, you've had help, which I think is good, because sometimes we don't want to reach out for help, especially if it's for our mental health. We tend to say, no, we can cope with this, but sometimes you just need that other person to help you through.
I have to say, after I did the work, the first sort of set of work that I did, everybody I knew, I said, go and see a psychologist. It was the best thing I ever did. It absolutely turned my life around. And I was going to say, I've got 40 lesions in my brain and spinal cord, none of which are active. I haven't had a new lesion since I started seeing the psychologist in 1999.
Wow. So there's that connection there.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
No.
And the things that I learned, I take forward, and each thing I do now, even going to doing the sharks or whatever, I say to myself, and unfortunately that psychologist is no longer alive, and I think to myself, I wish Gary was here. He would love to know that I was doing this.
And have been, part of all that. But you've certainly, think you say you're a positive person, so you must have a positive outlook and mindset, and that can be quite powerful, can't it, in overcoming the days when perhaps you're not feeling the best, and also in saying, well, I'm not going to let this stop me from enjoying life.
Yes, but it's all, you have to know your body. You have to read what's happening. We've just had a very hot spell here in New South Wales, or where I live anyway. So I literally don't leave the house when it's really hot, because I'm very affected by the heat. So it slows me down. It stops me being able to do things, stops my brain working properly. So I don't fight it. I guess that's the bottom line. I don't fight it. So I just stay in the aircon, or I get in the pool. That's it. I don't go out. I don't do anything. I don't cook. I don't do anything. I just leave it all to my husband. He looks after me.
So you must have a very strong relationship there, and a very supportive partner, which obviously helps as well, because that would have been a shock to both of you at the time.
And absolutely, a big change. We actually changed industries because of my illness, and I could no longer do the work that was required. So we just tweaked and continued to tweak. That's how I ended up in the dog business, because I just adapted that to my skills from hospitality. I know how to deal with people. My dogs had passed away. I needed a new interest. I was feeling well. I needed a new interest. So I thought, all right, well, I can do this. So I did. And I did it successfully.
Yes. And lots of enjoyment from the work as well, I would imagine.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your travel. You at 18, you were working on a Russian cruise ship, and now I think is it now that you're traveling Australia in a teardrop van? So
we have a teardrop. Yes, we've done parts of that. Look, what I've realized now, I'm old enough to realize, and I look back at these things, and you say that I did that. I was on a Russian cruise ship at 18, but to me that was quite normal. Yeah, okay, I can do that. The next thing came along. My husband wanted to open a restaurant. Yeah, I can do that. So I don't know why my brain works that way, but I guess there's an adventure sort of part of me that I didn't really recognize that that's what it was until people started saying, wow, I couldn't do that, or how did you do that? Or, I mean, I just get on and do it. So
I think that's something that, like we've all got stories to tell, but we don't think they're interesting, or we don't think, well, why are people sort of making such a big deal about that? I didn't think it was anything
this is
special.
why you're here, Sue, to bring these stories out.
Yes, and I think it's good because firstly, I think it's good to recognize what you've done. For example, we'll use you because I'm talking to you. Thanks. In your life, and you probably don't always take time. I asked you to write a bit of a bio, and you probably hadn't written one for a while. I don't know, but looking back on then, it sort of makes you think, oh, yeah, I did that and I did that. And, and I think it's good for us to take time to reflect on what we've done and not play it down, I suppose, because everyone has something that we've done in our life that we should feel good about and proud for. And
we love our teardrop, I have to say, just quickly.
Yes,
we love our teardrop.
No. Yes. So what do you do with that? Because you seem to have that down pat from what I can see on social media when you're traveling.
It's a good size. We don't want a big van. We don't need all that stuff. We just wanted a little thing that we can take away when we want to. We just lock the front door. We don't have any commitments to children and things like that. And I know children are a wonderful place to go and to be, but that's not our option. So I look at what's good about our options, and that is that we are free to travel when we want, where we want. And so whilst we're well enough, my health is good, my husband's health is good, we're still relatively young, we want to get out and do as much as we can whilst we can.
Yes, yeah, and that's the important thing, is it? Don't sort of keep putting things off and think, oh, one day we'll do that, or whatever. You do need to be able to, just especially at this time of life for us, because we are in a new phase, and we need to be looking at ways that we can be living well and enjoying the life that we've worked hard to get
Correct.
to. I want to go back though to when you're about 18 or 17, because I read in your bio something that really struck a chord with me. We both were not encouraged to go to university. And I often say to people, I went to a selective girls' school in North Sydney, Girls High, and I don't know how I got there, but anyway.
Of course you do.
And I came from a working class background, and, there were girls in our school who were, had parents who were professional people, and they went on to academics and things like that. And, I always wanted to go to uni and be a school teacher, or teachers' college it was then. But my parents' attitude was, oh, well, you're only going to get married and have children, so why do you want to? So I was surprised to think that you went through the same experience, which made me think, oh, good, I wasn't the only one in year 12 or year 6 it was then, to not really be able to do what we wanted to do at that time.
Well, that's a whole other big question, isn't it? A whole other big conversation. But I guess the crux of it was, yes, my parents were not tertiary educated like yours. They had the same attitude about me, exactly what you said. But my brother also wasn't encouraged to go to university. He had a placement, but didn't take it up. I matricked. I wanted to actually become a PE teacher, which is ironic now that I have MS. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Excuse me. But interestingly, I think I wanted to be a PE teacher because my father had wanted to be a PE teacher, and he was prevented from doing that. So, and I had, I've got the sport genes. I always played sport. I did all that as well as the ballet and everything else. But they said, no, don't think that's a good idea. But you'd be better off. And I was not then enough emotionally developed to say, well, no, this is what I want to do.
Yes.
But I showed my willingness to make change and to take control of my life, because happy coincidence, as I told you in the bio, I found the ads. Last assignment we had in college we had to apply for a job.
Mm.
So I applied for a job on a Russian cruise ship because why wouldn't you? Let's face it. And I got it. So I didn't ever finish college, actually. I didn't even get a certificate because I needed to start work before college finished. So I said, okay, I'm off. I got on the ship in Sydney. And kudos to my parents that I was only 18 and they let me go, because if they'd said, no, you can't do that. Like, no, you can't go to uni, but yes, you can get on a Russian cruise ship and leave the country. How does that work? Anyway, I did. And so I started that adventure. And then, as I said in the bio, I needed my secretarial skills in my position as cruise hostess. So, and all throughout my business life, and you can say the same, I'm sure, you've used those skills that you learned.
Because I did the same thing. If you didn't go to uni, you went to secretarial college, didn't you?
Yes.
You did your shorthand and typing.
Yes. And I wasn't good at either of them, I have to be honest.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I was pretty good, I have to admit. I topped the year in it, but I mean,
good for you.
Big deal. But
no, that is a big deal. That is a big deal.
Yeah. I think, see, downplaying your own
be proud
successes.
Of all of your achievements.
Yes, that's
because
right.
Every little bit contributes to the future
who you
success.
are. That's right. And I just think before we leave the Russian cruise ship, you must have had some great experiences on that. But I look back to when I was 18 and I probably wouldn't have even gone to another state, let alone going to the other side of the world and on a Russian cruise ship, which would have been very exotic, I would think.
Yes, it was. It was exciting. I wanted excitement. I didn't want the ho-hum. You know, I knew I was never going to be a secretary. I just kind of did it because that's what I was expected to do. But it didn't take me long to find my own path and my own interests and how to pursue those. And that's what I'm still doing.
Yeah, well, that's right. You know, and that's what I love about you, in the fact that you are now not letting, you know, you have to be mindful of your body, but you're not saying, well, I can't do anything. You know, on good days, you're swimming with sharks. You're going traveling in your van with your husband.
As you do.
You know, as you do. And see, that's inspiring. Anyway. Yeah, that's inspiring, because too often, you know, we get up and I think we take our health for granted. And as we get older, you get a couple of aches and pains and you think it's the end of the world. But there are other people who are struggling with health issues that seem to be able to have that strength to, you know, like to me, there's a lot of hypochondriacs out there with nothing wrong with them. And yet when you get something that's really serious, people seem to find that inner strength.
I think the most important thing that I learned, or one of the basic things that I learned, was that everything is a choice. All right. So I can remember very early on in the piece giving the psychologist the example. I wanted to go and do some gardening, and I literally lasted about 5 minutes. And that's all I could do. I had to go in and lie down. And he said to me, well, why did you have to do the gardening? I said, well, because I wanted to do it. It needed to be done. He said, did it have to be done right then? I said, well, no. So you had a choice. You could do it or you didn't have to do it. So that's really how I live my life now. Can I do it? Do I want to do it? Should I do it? You know, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I think
I don't have to do it today. I can rest today. I learned how to give myself permission to be in charge of me.
I love that, Lynn. I just absolutely love it, because we tend to be, I have to do this and I have to do that, rather than saying, hey, this is my life. What you know, do I want? And as you say, give yourself permission. So last Sunday, I'd had a couple of really busy weeks, and I thought to myself, I'm getting off that damn social media and I'm getting off the computer and I'm just not looking at it all day. And it's surprising how good I felt. Sunday afternoon, I just went for a stroll and I felt so relaxed. I'd been, yeah. And we do need that. But a lot of times we get ruled by this or this, telling you to stand up every 5 minutes. And, you know, and I think, and also not being able to say no, you don't, you know, our boundaries, we need to, you know, make sure that we create those boundaries.
It's an important thing to learn. You have to learn how to be able to say no, I don't want to, or not now, or whatever. But also I had to learn how to say yes. It was sometimes you'd be frightened to say yes because afraid of the consequences. So you extrapolate that out into, well, if there's a consequence, then you know how to deal with the consequence. So don't stop yourself doing something you want to do because you're afraid that something else might happen. Because you have the skills to deal with whatever it is else that happens. Does that make sense?
Very wise advice there. Now, I want to come on to you being an ambassador for MS, because I think you've done great work there, and that's a legacy and inspiring others because you're doing that work there. So I would like you just to talk a little bit about that for us before, you know, we're getting into the end of the conversation. So I want to talk about that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Well, at one stage, I think it's a long time ago now, but I wasn't working much. Let's just put it that way. I'm just not quite sure what I was doing, but I had spare time. I was feeling okay and I had spare time. And the opportunity came up to become what was called an MS ambassador. Now that was for New South Wales MS Society. And it was a volunteer position. And we used to go out to a variety of clubs and do public speaking to advocate on behalf of the society, to hopefully raise funds, but to raise awareness of what MS is, because as you said earlier, that many years ago, and this is probably, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, it wasn't that well known. And in fact, I used to quote a figure on the coast where I live, there was 160 people, I think, with MS. Now I know there's over 700 people with MS those years later. So with the more people, it's more well known, but at that time it wasn't well known. So I did that for several years and I went out to various clubs. I actually had gone to Toastmasters. So I had done work on how to do public speaking. So I was quite confident and it was a good story to tell. I did that for a while, and then I was asked by the umbrella organisation MS Australia to become what's called an MS advocate. So that meant me dealing with not just me, there's about 20 of us around Australia, and deal with our federal politicians. And we would advocate on behalf of MS Australia when it came to, say, drugs going onto the PBS or other various things that they needed the politicians to learn about our situation. So I have I've got 2 local members and I've got a senator. So I used to speak with them regularly. We would go down to Canberra once a year to a conference, and we would all meet up and talk. And we know that work that we did made a very big difference for the general MS community, because the politicians, we were able to knock on the door, present ourselves, present the paperwork of what was involved and teach them a little bit. My actual local senator, she had a nephew who had MS, so she was very interested and very helpful. And it's exciting. As I say, I just try to find, well, I just happen to find these things that are exciting, and it was a very exciting thing to do. It did then go on to recently, something I'm very proud of. I was asked to participate in a forum, in a Zoom meeting that was run by a lot of very intelligent doctors. And I was one of 3 or 4 other people with MS. And they were trying to, I don't know if I'm going to explain this properly, but they have drugs that worked in certain ways. And they were trying to adapt those, get permission to adapt those drugs to help people with MS. They weren't MS drugs. Okay. So I was involved in that, and it became a paper, and it was presented to the big people who decide these things, and they decided that it would happen. So the paper was presented. I am named on that paper because I participated.
Excellent.
I find it hysterical. But anyway, I really did nothing. I talked a little bit, and I don't even know that I talked very well. But nevertheless, my name is there on a paper that is becoming very important in the drug world to help people with MS. So that's a pretty good legacy, I think.
Well, it is excellent. And as I said, I don't want to use the word normal because you aren't normal. You know what I mean? In the scheme of things, you're vibrant and you've done so much. But
haven't people? I mean, everyone you talk to,
yes,
and all the people that you don't get to talk to, they're just living their lives.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We get a lot of people who are celebrities, or they get their fame or whatever, and everybody listens to what they're saying. But then there's people like us who are just going about living our life and doing what we enjoy and making a difference. Now you're making a difference to which has been born out of your own experience, and probably you wouldn't have been an ambassador if you hadn't had MS yourself. You might have found something else to do, but the work that you've done to help others is really inspiring and something that you should be proud of.
Oh yes, of course, I'm proud. But you're right, if it hadn't have been this, it would have been something else, because that's just my nature to find new things. I want to keep being interested in new things and working new things and working out ways that I can help myself, but also the bigger picture is, I mean, the MS community, I have a lot of friends with MS, varying degrees of people like me who walk around. If you saw me, you wouldn't know that I had MS, unless you asked me to skip or run or
jump
or walk a kilometer. I could probably walk a kilometer, but I'd have to rest after that. So I say to people, the two things I'm good at is sitting and talking. The rest,
nothing wrong with that.
So if you only see me sitting and talking, I look normal.
Yes, well, I mean, you look really well, and the other good thing though is the other thing is that you were saying before we came on air that some of you've got a friend who was diagnosed around the same time as yourself, and she's actually now in a wheelchair where you aren't, and you're just telling us that you can probably stretch to a kilometer, or you can sort of, if you look at you wouldn't really know. So obviously things are going okay for you. I would think you have to have regular checkups and things like that, or
no. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I know. Well, when I was diagnosed, there weren't any drugs. Okay.
No. Yeah.
So now there's lots of drugs. When the drugs, I've been diagnosed about 6 years when the drugs started coming out, and the neurologist said, try these. I said, no, thank you. Another one to come, try this one. No, thank you. Because I was going okay. At that point in time, I was confident the way I was looking after myself. Physically, I was eating well. I was still quite ambulatory. I was still working full time at that stage. Stuff was happening, but I didn't feel that I wanted to go over to the drugs because I didn't know what they were going to do. So we fast forward to here. Well, I used to have regular meetings with the neurologist. 12, 18 months ago, I had a meeting with him. And so I've never done any of the drugs. Okay. I'm a bit of an anomaly as far as he's concerned. I'm a bit of a freak, actually, because he doesn't see many people who've been diagnosed as long as I have, who's able to do the things that I can do. I said to him, I asked him, Dennis, why am I still coming to see you? And he said, I don't know. So I said, well, maybe I won't. He said, okay. So I have a deal with him. If I need to see him, I can call him and get an appointment. But let's hope I don't ever have to do that.
No.
I say to him, Dennis, do you go to conferences? And he said, yeah, I talk about you all the time. I said, well, take me to your conference and I'll talk to them. But no, he's not game enough to do that.
You might take over. But well, it sounds like, like you would give a very interesting talk, and I think it's good to get the message out there. And as you say, you enjoy it. It's exciting. It's stretching you, I suppose. Yes. With your abilities. And whilst you might be confident standing up and talking to people, it still needs preparation. And, I know myself, when I come on here, I've got to make that connection with the person I'm talking to. And, I find at the end of it, though, I sometimes think, oh, that was, that was really good. I always come away inspired and uplifted after talking to women and my guests. But sometimes it's a lot more of a mental strain than others.
Okay.
So, I would think you'd be the same with your, presentations and that.
Well, I'm hoping I haven't been a mental strain today.
Oh, no, you haven't. We've chatted really well. We've chatted really well. And I'm sorry that we are coming towards the end of the conversation. I've still got a couple of questions to go.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
But what I wanted to ask you before I get to this main question that I ask all of my guests, are there any other things that you'd like to share with us about, probably about, the way you live your life and your attitude to life? Because someone might be listening today that says, oh, well, I couldn't do that, or I couldn't do this. And
that's, excuse me interrupting. But the first thing is, if they say they couldn't, they're right, they couldn't. If they change it from couldn't to could, then at least they've got a chance.
Yeah. So what sort of advice do you have for someone out there who's probably not really, they're just coasting along, but they want something more, but they're not sure how to go about it? What would you suggest from your experiences?
Well, it's not for me to say, of course, how other people should or need to live their life. But if you have a desire to do something, it's beholden on yourself to find a way to do that. Okay, so don't expect someone to come along and knock you on the head or tap you on the shoulder and say, well, I think you can do this, or you should do that, or whatever. That's what you should be saying to, or you should is a bad word, but that's what you can use yourself. I wanted to do that, so I found a way to do it. I wanted to do that, so I found a way to do it. So that's sort of the fundamental. Know what it is, what you want, and then find the way to achieve it, to get it. Does that make sense?
And I think a lot of, that's right. And look, everybody has something like a burning desire of something they'd really like to do or achieve, but sometimes they just put the roadblocks up themselves.
Absolutely. And I see those people, and I just want to shake them and say, you're the only one that's stopping you. You've got to do it for yourself. But that's not my place to say that.
No, but it's, I think in a way it is. You're not telling, you're giving them the advice that they need and the little shake up that we need sometimes, because you're not going to do it for them. We all have to do it ourselves, whatever we want to do. But it's sometimes you need that person to give you the nudge and the encouragement to get going. So I think what you're saying today is so helpful to women out there, especially at our stage of life, because it's really a new world open to us, and we can either just sort of go along in our own little way and be unfulfilled, or we can use this time now, when we do have time, to do the things that really bring us joy and make us feel fulfilled as a person. And it doesn't have to be anything on the world stage. It can just be something within your life.
And it's fear of failure as well. I'm not afraid to fail, because at least I've tried.
Yes, and once you get over that hurdle.
Yeah, I can I think I leave the house, I think I'm feeling okay, I can walk da-da-dum, and I get half to da-da-dum and go, actually, no, I can't, and I've got to turn around and come back. But I don't see that as a fail. That's just didn't happen that day.
That's right. We can be sometimes way too hard on ourselves compared to the way we are with others. We're
absolutely,
we do come down on ourselves way too hard, and that's something I'm guilty of, and I'm actually learning not to be that way. It's only taken me 67 years, but I'm getting there.
It's okay. Once you're there, you're there.
That's right. That's right. Well, before we go, Lynne, I wanted to ask you a question. And it's, what does being a woman living well after 50 mean to you?
Oh, okay. That's the biggie. How long have I got?
As long as you want.
What does living well? It means accepting change. It means embracing change. It means still wanting to be, wanting to learn new things, wanting to help other people, wanting to help yourself. It's a big question. It means success in who you are. It means being happy with who you are. That's the bottom line. Happy with who you are, because then you can give out to other people.
And you certainly do that in spades. So
thank you.
I'm just so happy that you've joined me today. I suppose you thought when I approached you, oh, what do you want to talk to me for? But as you can see,
no,
we've
I
been
did not
talking
think that
for,
because I know I'm a very interesting person. So I didn't.
Well, there you go. I love that. I love that. You're backing yourself. That's what I say to my grandson, because he always puts himself up for things. And I go, well, that's great. You're backing yourself. You know, you can give it a go. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. So that's great. But it has been so lovely chatting to you, Lynne. And I know I've sort of been a bit gushy, but I am admiring of everything that you've done. And as I said before, I always feel uplifted when I talk to other women and hear their stories. And I'm so glad that you made the time to share yours with me today.
Thank you. But of course, the interesting thing about you is that I know backstories about you that are very inspiring, that I'm assuming you haven't really shared very much either. So you're not as you appear. You know, we all put on a face, and you're very professional and all that stuff. But I remember you from ballet school, and I remember what you did with that and how beautiful a ballerina you were, and how you took that on and progressed that into a career. So, you know, you're not just someone sitting there at the computer talking to people trying to find inspiration.
Yes.
You are the inspiration, Sue.
Well, thank you, Lynne. That's so lovely of you to say. And but I like being the interviewer. I really get to know women. And so it's been lovely today. Really great to have you. So thanks again for joining me.
See you at the reunion.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Sue. Bye.
Bye.